Renegade Immortal Episode 64. I didn't expect the Immortal Gate to open. There are so many Nascent Soul Stage 7 powerhouses. And I didn't expect that as a Nascent Soul initial stage undead, I'd be treated like a soft persimmon, ready to be squeezed by anyone. However, Lei Wa directly stated, "What kind of small fry dare to act presumptuously in front of me?" Previously, after years of waiting, the undead finally witnessed the opening of the heavenly Dao Gate. The rain cauldron in his hand transformed into a wisp of Immortal Qi. Guided by the Immortal Qi, Wang Ling smoothly passed through the clouds. What unfolded before him was a vast and boundless starry sky. It turned out that the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning, the four great immortal sects, were situated in the four directions of the starry sky. Beneath each immortal sect gathered numerous cultivation planets. Therefore, to compete for the Immortal Qi, whenever the Immortal Gate opened, powerful cultivators from every cultivation planet would gather. Meanwhile, in a certain second-rate cultivation nation, the scruffy old man who had gifted Wang Ling the straw hat looked up at the sky with a faint smile on his lips. He softly said, "It's finally opened. Little fellow, you must make good use of the straw hat I lent you, or else your life might be in danger." Wang Ling looked back. Vermilion Bird Star had already transformed into a giant sphere. As he continued to ascend, Vermilion Bird Star gradually grew smaller. 5 beams of light suddenly shot out from Vermilion Bird Star. Strangely, Wang Ling sensed the Immortal Qi pulling him towards the 5 beams of light. It turned out that these 5 beams of light represented the prodigy Hong Dai, the young master of the giant demon clan, Qi Hu, the ominous-looking youth from the desolate mountains, grand elder son Tai of the Shering sect, and the mysterious middle-aged man holding a wine gourd. At this moment, Wang Ling couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Who would have thought that the poor scholar who struggled to pass the imperial examinations would now transform into a nascent soul old monster? The 6 of them arrived together at a shattered platform. In front of the platform stood a giant gate of golden light. It was the Immortal Gate. The grandeur of this gate was beyond words. Standing beneath it, one would feel as insignificant as an ant. However, terrifyingly, above the Immortal Gate there was a giant palm print. Seeing this, Wang Ling's heart skipped a beat. He thought to himself, to be able to crack such a massive Immortal Gate with a single palm, what kind of powerful divine ability is needed? Looking at the rubble beneath the cultivator's feet, it seemed they were originally a whole, but now they were shattered into countless pieces. Clearly, these fragments were caused by the aftershocks of that palm strike. Thinking of this, the pride that had just risen within Wang Ling instantly vanished. As more cultivators from the cultivation planets arrived, the originally spacious rubble platform gradually became crowded. Among the Nascent Soul initial stage cultivators, one cultivator, whether intentionally or unintentionally, landed directly on the platform where Qi Hu stood. Moreover, he adopted a haughty attitude, demanding that Qi Hu leave the spot. But when he saw the tiger mark flickering on Qi Hu's forehead, he trembled in his heart and immediately flashed away from the rubble platform. However, it didn't end there. He then set his sights on the platform where Hong Dai was. But after hastily sizing her up, he immediately cupped his hands and turned to leave. He had already sensed that Hong Dai was a nascent soul late-stage cultivator, someone he absolutely couldn't afford to provoke. Since the platforms where Sun Tai and Zhou Yi were located had limited space, his gaze fell on Wang Ling and the bloodthirsty youth's platform. After some consideration, he ultimately chose Wang Ling, who appeared to be a frail scholar. In his opinion, the latter should be easier to deal with. At the same time, several others from Vermilion Bird Star also turned their attention to this side. Among them, Hong Dai felt a strange sense of familiarity with Wang Ling, but couldn't quite place him. The cultivator coldly said, "Fellow Taoist, please find another place." Wang Ling's expression remained unchanged upon hearing this. He flicked his right wrist, and the beast-taming ring slipped off, instantly transforming into a large toad. Seeing this, the cultivator's face drastically changed. He exclaimed in shock, "Lei Wa." Indeed, Lei Wa was one of Wang Ling's preparations for his journey to the Immortal Realm. However, compared to Lei Wa, the Jing fan and the devil head in his storage bag were his true trump cards. Therefore, Wang Ling wasn't worried about revealing Lei Wa's existence. After all, in this place, strength reigned supreme. If he didn't display some strength, he would likely face endless trouble in the future. Lei Wa's strength was equivalent to a Nascent Soul mid-stage cultivator. Although the thunderballs he spat out didn't possess the power of intent, their power was not to be underestimated. Lei Wa puffed up his belly, and a giant thunderball shot out from his mouth. Facing this, the cultivator hurriedly retreated and quickly performed hand seals. At a heavy cost, he barely managed to repel the thunderball. Lei Wa simply opened his giant mouth and swallowed the thunderball, ready to attack again at any moment. The cultivator glanced at Lei Wa with apprehension, a wry smile on his face. He then cupped his hands towards Wang Ling, indicating his surrender. Afterward, he didn't try to compete for any other rubble platforms. Instead, he chose to sit cross-legged in the air and began to cultivate. Seeing this, Qi Hu, the young master of the giant demon clan, nodded, seemingly acknowledging Wang Ling's strength. Hong Dai and Sun Tai frowned slightly before looking away. However, the bloodthirsty youth's eyes revealed a look of extreme caution. This was because the techniques he cultivated were related to insects, and Wang Ling's Lei Wa just happened to be his counter. However, the middle-aged man drinking alone acted rather strangely. He muttered to himself, "Pinger, I've seen Lei Wa again. It's a pity it's not the same one from back then." As a result, the surrounding cultivators looked at Wang Ling with a hint of wariness in their eyes. Wang Ling didn't say a word, acting as if nothing had happened. He simply recalled Lei Wa, took out a gourd of fruit wine, and drank while waiting for the Immortal Gate to open. Accompanied by an earth-shattering boom, the Immortal Gate slowly opened. A powerful aura emanated from within. The cultivators all stood up and stepped inside. But then, beside Wang Ling, a palm-sized jade cauldron appeared. According to ancient records, this jade cauldron was called the Return Cauldron. Its function was to allow one, within a specific area, after meditating for the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, to return to their respective cultivation planet. I didn't expect the Yuji Immortal Gate to open. Wang Ling was the first to obtain the Immortal Qi. Previously, as everyone knows, Immortal Qi is essential for nascent soul cultivators to break through to the Yin transformation realm. But Immortal Qi only exists within the 4 great immortal sects. Therefore, Wang Ling prepared for several years to enter the Immortal Realm. However, what Wang Ling didn't expect was that the moment he stepped into the Yuji Immortal Gate, the Immortal Realm, which he thought would be glorious and radiant, was instead a shattered and dilapidated lifeless ruin. Its surface was covered with bottomless abysses. It was like a world of death. Although he had long heard rumors of the Immortal Realm's destruction, if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Wang Ling would have found it hard to believe. After a moment of silence, Wang Ling flew towards the ruined palace in the distance. Although it didn't seem far, during his flight, Wang Ling felt an invisible resistance, forcing him to slow down considerably. After a long flight, Wang Ling finally arrived in front of the ruined palace. He saw that the palace's building materials were actually made of high-grade spirit stones. But eroded by time, these spirit stones had lost their effectiveness. Some parts even crumbled at the slightest touch. Amidst the ruins, a deep sorrow welled up in Wang Ling's heart. When he reached the center of the palace, a gigantic palm print came into view. Gazing at this terrifying sight, Wang Ling couldn't help but recall the palm print on the Yuji Immortal Gate. He used his life and death intent to investigate and could still sense the terrifying power from the residual aura. He then withdrew his intent and continued to explore deeper. Several days later, Wang Ling arrived before a stone tablet. According to the inscription on the tablet, it turned out that a person named Tianhua Xianshi had made great contributions in the past. The former king, using divine power, built this palace for him as a reward. If a mere Xianshi could possess such a magnificent palace, how glorious must the former king's residence have been? Thinking of this, Wang Ling couldn't help but sigh. However, just as he was about to turn and leave, his eyes suddenly flickered. He turned back, staring intently at the stone tablet. Although the stone tablet seemed ordinary and unremarkable, Wang Ling felt a sense of unease. It was a monument recording the deeds of Tianhua Xianshi. Why would it evoke such a strong feeling in him? Such an item should be placed in plain sight for everyone to admire, yet it was hidden deep within the palace. This was extremely odd. So, it was very strange. Wang Ling then sent out a flying sword to shave off a layer of the stone tablet. But nothing unusual happened. So, Wang Ling slowly lifted the stone tablet. As expected, the secret was revealed. Logically speaking, after years of weathering, the bottom of the stone tablet should have dry and cracked lines. But now it appeared unusually moist. Therefore, this stone tablet must have been moved here by a cultivator to hide a secret during a previous opening of the Immortal Gate. Wang Ling was certain in his heart and completely lifted the stone tablet. Instantly, a wave of pure Immortal Qi drifted out from within. Seeing this, Wang Ling's face lit up with joy, and he quickly used his magic power to contain the Immortal Qi and began to refine it. But unexpectedly, at this very moment, a giant octagonal formation suddenly appeared in the distant sky. Immediately after, a cultivator from the Qingshan sect, carrying a precious sword, sped towards him. Seeing Wang Ling refining the Immortal Qi, the Qingshan cultivator's expression drastically changed. He angrily shouted, "Stop! This place was discovered by my great Luo Jian sect 3,000 years ago. If you insist on acting recklessly, my great Luo Jian sect will hunt you down to the ends of the earth." A cold sneer flashed across Wang Ling's heart upon hearing this. It was utterly absurd. How could the things of the world belong to anyone? He then took off the beast-taming ring and summoned Lei Wa to assist him, while he continued to refine the Immortal Qi. Lei Wa puffed up his belly and spat out a giant thunderball, shooting it straight at the opponent. Seeing this, the Qingshan cultivator's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly sent out his precious sword, and a giant blade, as if capable of splitting heaven and earth, descended from the sky, splitting the thunderball in two. Although he successfully neutralized the thunderball's power, the Qingshan cultivator clearly suffered considerable damage. It turned out that the sword he carried on his back was one of the 7 swords of the Great Luo Jian sect, a top-grade spiritual weapon. However, when facing Lei Wa, whose strength was equivalent to the peak of Nascent Soul mid-stage, the power of his sword technique could only result in mutual destruction. Meanwhile, thanks to Lei Wa's interference, Wang Ling successfully refined the Immortal Qi into a rice grain-sized purple crystal. Although this crystal was small, the spiritual power it contained was equivalent to half of the total spiritual power of the Zhao Kingdom. After storing the crystal in his storage bag, Wang Ling stood up and coldly looked at the Qingshan cultivator. Now, Wang Ling understood that beneath the stone tablet was a formation node of the palace's formation. This formation could automatically absorb the surrounding free-floating Immortal Qi. The Great Luo Jian sect had clearly discovered this secret and used the stone tablet to conceal it, preventing others from discovering it. Every time the Immortal Gate opened, they would send someone to collect the Immortal Qi. Thinking of this, a cold sneer appeared on Wang Ling's lips. With a wave of his hand, Wang Ling directly destroyed the remaining formation node, rendering it incapable of functioning and generating any more Immortal Qi. In Wang Ling's view, since he had already offended the Great Luo Jian sect, they clearly wouldn't let the matter rest. He might as well go all the way and destroy the formation node to prevent them from continuing to exploit this place and cultivate more experts. The Qingshan cultivator stared fixedly at Wang Ling, let out a loud shout, and once again activated the sword above his head. The sword immediately shone with a blinding golden light again. With a swing, a sword Qi twice as thick as before crashed down from the sky, as if to cleave heaven and earth in two. After unleashing this sword strike, the Qingshan cultivator spat out a mouthful of blood and immediately withered. Without even looking at the result of his sword strike, he immediately took to his heels and ran. Wang Ling pointed at his brow, and beams of black light flickered from his brow, transforming into numerous wraiths that roared and charged into the air, colliding with the sword Qi. At the same time, Lei Wa roared, puffed up his belly again, and spat out an even larger thunderball that whistled towards the Qingshan cultivator. Wang Ling snorted coldly. Trying to run? He then patted his storage bag, and a Jing fan immediately appeared in his hand. In an instant, it transformed into a dense black mist. Then, the black mist suddenly broke free from its restraints and chased after the Qingshan cultivator. Previously, after Wang Ling entered the Yuji Immortal Realm, by a stroke of luck, he obtained a wisp of Immortal Qi and also discovered a formation node capable of condensing Immortal Qi. But unexpectedly, this formation node had already been discovered by the Great Luo Jian sect 3,000 years ago. However, that sly old fox Wang Ling not only refined the Immortal Qi, he also destroyed the formation node. This infuriated the Qingshan cultivator so much that his scalp went numb. He didn't hesitate to unleash his spiritual sword technique again, a move that harmed himself almost as much as his enemy. In an instant, an even more powerful sword Qi, like the collapsing of heaven and earth, slashed towards Wang Ling. However, the Qingshan cultivator knew deep down that he was no match for Wang Ling, so after unleashing his ultimate move, he bolted. Witnessing this, Wang Ling remained completely unfazed. He simply tapped his brow, and hundreds of wraiths surged out, fiercely colliding with the sword Qi. They instantly neutralized the sword Qi. At the same time, he summoned Jing Fan and swiftly pursued the Qingshan cultivator. As the Qingshan cultivator fled in panic, he glanced back and his face contorted in an extremely unsightly expression. He never expected that Wang Ling could so easily neutralize his sword Qi. But just as Wang Ling was about to catch up to the Qingshan cultivator, the latter suddenly used a mysterious secret technique to drastically increase his speed several-fold and dove into a formation. Only after entering the formation did the Qingshan cultivator feel slightly relieved. Because there were numerous Immortal Realm fragments there, as long as he randomly chose a formation to teleport through, the other party would definitely be unable to follow. Thinking of this, he sneered at Wang Ling. Just you wait. For of us from the Great Luo Jian sect have come this time. I'm merely the one with the lowest cultivation level. Once I find my senior brothers and we unleash our swords together, you definitely won't be able to leave this Immortal Gate. Hearing this, Wang Ling's eyes flickered and his figure instantly vanished. Just as the Qingshan cultivator was about to step into the formation, Wang Ling suddenly appeared above him. He then summoned a bell. The Qingshan cultivator's face instantly paled. He never expected the opponent's speed to be so astonishing. In the blink of an eye, the bell grew larger in the wind, transforming into a bronze bell several meters in size, enveloping the Qingshan cultivator. After recalling Jing Fan, Wang Ling sat down cross-legged and cast a series of hand seals onto the bell. The bell immediately began to vibrate violently. The melodious bell sounds continuously penetrated inwards. Then, the Qingshan cultivator's screams of pain echoed within the bell. However, how could he be willing to be refined just like that? He attempted to use the power of his sword to break the magical treasure from the inside. This bell was one of the magical treasures that Wang Ling had swindled from an ancient cultivator in the land of ancient gods. Its primary function was to trap enemies. Combined with specific hand seals and incantations, it could even completely refine a cultivator, even their nascent soul. Of course, the prerequisite for all of this was that the treasure wielder's cultivation level had to be higher than the person being refined. Otherwise, it would backfire. If the opponent was extremely weak, the same effect could be achieved. As Wang Ling continued to cast hand seals, the Qingshan cultivator's screams gradually weakened until they completely disappeared. But Wang Ling didn't rush to open the bell to check. Instead, he cautiously stored it in his storage bag. Because after a nascent soul cultivator cultivates a nascent soul, even if they win a fight, it's very difficult to completely kill the opponent. Even if the Qingshan cultivator died, there was still a chance of a final counterattack. Wang Ling naturally didn't want to take any unnecessary risks. Since the bell itself possessed refining power, Wang Ling decided to continue refining the Qingshan cultivator for 10 to 15 days to prevent any final counterattack before death. It had to be said that this move of Wang Ling's was quite ruthless. After a short rest, Wang Ling continued to search the Immortal Realm fragment. However, a month passed and he found nothing. Until one day, Wang Ling arrived at a strange mountain peak shaped like a giant lock. This mountain peak was relatively well preserved, but the originally long-lived trees on it had withered. Wang Ling originally wanted to use these trees to make wood carvings, but they crumbled at the slightest touch, turning into dust and dissipating into the air. He couldn't help but feel a little regretful. At the peak of the mountain was a cave dwelling covered in dust. Although there were 7 or 8 rooms inside, it was completely empty. It had clearly been looted long ago. However, Wang Ling discovered a trace of residual restriction markings there. Although this restriction wasn't very strong, it was somewhat similar to Wang Ling's ancient restriction, only the internal structure was slightly different. After memorizing the restriction, Wang Ling returned along the same path down the mountain. But when he reached the mountainside, the ashes of the trees were all floating in the air, strangely forming the words, "Save me." A flicker of confusion crossed Wang Ling's brow. After pondering for a moment, he chose to leave, because he knew that he was definitely not the first person to discover this strange place. Yet the mountain peak had remained for so long. There must be a reason for this. After carefully searching all the Immortal Realm fragments, Wang Ling didn't find a single trace of Immortal Qi. So he decided to leave this place and explore other fragments. The method to leave the Immortal Realm fragment, as far as he knew, was to ascend and break through the sky barrier. Then, one could return to the initial Immortal Gate. Upon entering again, one would randomly land in another fragment. But what puzzled Wang Ling was the strange way the Qingshan cultivator had appeared. He had actually arrived there through a teleportation formation. Wang Ling couldn't help but speculate that perhaps some ancient sects, after entering the Immortal Gate multiple times, had set up teleportation formations there to allow their disciples to teleport more easily. Before leaving, Wang Ling took out the bell. Based on his calculations, the Qingshan cultivator should have been almost completely refined. He opened the bell, and inside, only a storage bag and a sword remained. However, the moment he opened the bell, the sword suddenly hummed. A weak sword Qi suddenly shot out. Wang Ling easily neutralized the sword Qi, but then he heard a cry of anguish. Then, the opponent's Nascent Soul power completely dissipated. It turned out that before his death, the Qingshan cultivator had hidden his Nascent Soul within the sword, attempting to deliver a fatal blow when Wang Ling was off guard. But he hadn't expected that as time passed and the refining deepened, his Nascent Soul would gradually be unable to withstand it. In the end, this final counterattack was easily neutralized by Wang Ling. Next episode, Wang Ling versus Hong Dai. Please give us a like and we'll continue in the next episode.